Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Anton, and welcome to today's video for Legends of Runeterra. Today, what are we doing today? Well, we got a balance patch. We've currently been in a very divisive meta. Basically a Seraphine plus Vayne meta and a couple of other stuff scattered around. Some people love the balance patch. Some people hate the current patch. Some people love the current patch. I'd say the majority of people, though, are not the biggest fans of the patch. So for a lot of those people, this is a very welcome balance change. So we're going to be looking at this balance patch together, reacting to it, trying to talk about what we think is going to be the upcoming meta, whether I like some changes, whether there are some things that are just not showing up in the balance patch that I wish showed up. Basically, this is a reaction video. Probably gonna be a long-ish video, so if you're sitting down, maybe pause the video now, go get a drink, go get a snack, and come back. Probably gonna be long because, well, there's a lot of cards that are being changed, and a couple other things too, like cosmetics. Anyway, let's go and look at the balance patch. Okay, so patch 3.19.0. As we can see here, lots of changes. Few changes that were not on this list that are in here. But first off, what do we have? Varus. Varus has gotten a buff for his level up condition. Now he only has to only see you target 7 things, or doesn't even have to see you target 7 things. You only have to target 7 things, 7 allies, instead of 8 allies. Varus actually got off to a slow start. Like at the very beginning, people were just laughing at Varus and being like, lol, Varus kind of sucks especially compared to Vayne and Seraphine. While I wouldn't say that Varus is better than Vayne or Seraphine, I still think Varus is the worst and weakest of those 3 champs. Varus seems to have found a home and seems to be actually doing things and putting up some results now. Varus Pantheon and Varus Action seem to be solid decks, but they did take a while to actually show up. So I think those decks are actually just going to get that much better. I do think there's a couple more nerfs to at least the Pantheon deck, but for Action Varus seems solid. So yeah, this is actually kind of scary. Varus does, even in those decks, Varus does feel like he levels up a little too slow, but you still play him because he's just another big overwhelm unit. Next up, we got Jinx. This is actually kind of scary, I think. Jinx, now when she levels up, will create a super mega death rocket right away. That's really scary. I know I just said it, but yeah, that's terrifying. That's just basically like, yeah, if you level her up, you get a decimate for 1 mana. That also is kind of like a decimate combined with a red card, because it deals 1 to their side of the board. So I don't know. I think this is really, really powerful. I feel like the problem though might be finding a home for Jinx. Like, what are we gonna play with Jinx? I don't think Jinx Draven will be that great. Like, Jinx Draven discard aggro's not awful, but I don't think this buff will bring it back. I still think Draven being 2 health does hurt it a lot. If anything, my guess is maybe Jinx Lulu. Like, Jinx Lulu seems kind of poised to take over with this. I don't know. But yeah, this is a really sweet build, or sweet buff. Maybe a Jinx Ionia deck. Technically, that could be Jinx Lulu, in all honesty, instead of Vandal. So yeah, that way you could play some protection magic like Twins and Deny. So yeah, I'm really scared as a control player to play against this. So please, hopefully it's not too strong. Next up, what do we have though? Jax. I don't know about Jax. Like Jax is interesting. So first off, his level up has been buffed. Now only 12 damage has to be done instead of having the equipped allies deal 15 damage. Whatever, right? It's like, okay, cool. Let's read really quick what they have to say about Jax. Jax has found some footing alongside Vayne and her support cards. Very true. I'll be honest with you, I feel like Jax Vayne was kind of just a thing meant to punish Seraphine decks. I feel like if Seraphine falls off, Jax Vayne will probably fall off too, Jax Vayne will fall off and other Vayne decks will take its place. And even then, Jax Vayne isn't that popular. He still doesn't feel like the star of the show for his origin, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's because his origin does nothing, Riot. I'm sorry, like, his origin's literally just, you can put Weapon Masters in the deck. So it seems like they're gonna lower his level up requirements to give him a chance to continue to shine once tumbling gets a little tougher. Cool. I don't know, I think it's fine. Like, Jax himself is solid. His champ spell is probably one of the best parts of him. Light of Acathia is decent. Like, if he levels up, he puts on a lot of pressure. I really feel like Jax is actually probably the weakest part of Jax decks, as weird as it sounds. Maybe we can try Jax Ornn. I believe we have some Freljord buffs too, so maybe we can go back and try Jax Ornn again, but I don't know. It's just a nice, like, small buff, I think, for Jax. So yeah, helps you put on a lot of pressure faster because of the quicker level up to give Light of Acathia Overwhelm. So, and Jax some more stats. So yeah, overall solid buff, but nothing crazy. Gwen, not much to talk about with Gwen. Now she'll just always drain 2 when she's at level 2. Basically, previously, if you had killed Gwen, if basically Gwen was missing when this card or when this ability resolved, she would deal 0 damage. So it seems like even if you vengeance Gwen, she will still deal 2 damage to you. Cool, whatever. Not really a big buff, but it is still a buff overall. Feels like it's more just a Riot just going back and being like, yeah, we kind of just wanted it to always work like this kind of buff. Oh, and now here come the nerfs. So first off, Seraphine. Big nerf. This is a huge nerf. From 6 spells to 9 spells for her level up? That's insane. I don't think she's dead. I do think this nerf will hurt Ezreal Seraphine the most because Ezreal Seraphine actually didn't play that many different cards. While for, say, like, Seraphine Ionia, Seraphine Shadow Isles, you know, with Victor and stuff, more value-oriented piles, less combo compared to Ezreal. I think they should be okay. Also, Seraphine Targon with Aphelios. I think they should be okay because they do play a lot of different spells. But you still have to realize, yeah, well, they'll be okay, I think. This is a very slow level up. Like, I feel like you really wanted, like, getting Seraphine leveled up on around turn 7 and trying to use her, you know, her value to turn the game around. So this feels like it's gonna slow her level up by, I'd say, maybe 2 turns on average, maybe. Probably means you're gonna have to be less greedy with your Seraphine decks, I guess, but I think Seraphine's still alive. I'm honestly going to keep playing Seraphine. I'm even going to play Seraphine even more now because I won't have to run into the mirror as much. The next nerf, though, Fan Club President. Nothing crazy here. She's just up to 5 mana, which, that's a pretty big nerf. Like, I feel like mana nerfs are some of the biggest nerfs you can give a card. And this is a 5 mana 2/2 now. Yes, the discount is still permanent, but you're playing a 5 for your 5 drop. Your turn 5 play is a 2/2. I don't know. That's kind of that's a big tempo loss. I mean, my assumption is we're still going to be playing this in Seraphine decks. It's just maybe we don't just slam 3 of these in Seraphine decks. Maybe we just play 2. Man, if you've played Seraphine before, you should know why this card is so good. Just being able to pull whatever with RNG is just great. Like, you know, it's like, oh, Withering Wail. I guess I just win now. Or Withering Mist or Grass. I just got free life gain. Or, I don't know, like the Nasus champ spell just for a kill spell. Or a rally in the form of, like, Shunpo or something. So yeah, I still think you'll play at least a couple of these because the value is just so high. And a lot of 5-drop spells are just so game-swinging, so yeah, I think it's still fine. It's a 2 of, maybe a 3 of if you want to be greedy. Next up, we got some Vayne nerfs here. Vayne's Tumble now starts at 4 mana, but level 2 Vayne now reduces the cost of her Tumble to 0 instead of reducing the cost by 3. Kind of just like a wording change there, really. I mean, like, It's not really much of a buff, really, but the tumble nerf, I like it. I hate Vayne. I've played against Vayne a lot, and I really hate Vayne. I just don't like Demacia in general. Like the attack multiple times kind of Demacia playstyle. It's very annoying to play against as a control player, and, well, I'm a control player. I do think this is a bigger buff than some people are giving it credit for. Being able to go like turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, pass, bank 2 mana, turn 3, Vayne, turn 4, powerful 4-drop, and tumble that 4-drop, I think was a very big play for some Vayne decks. The most popular one being maybe Rumble. You know, being like turn 1, 1-drop, turn 2, bank mana, turn 3, Vayne, turn 4, Rumble, playing Tumble to put Great Hammers on Rumble. And also for Gwen as well. So I think Vayne is still powerful and still strong. It's just not as she's not as aggressive and doesn't push as much damage as she used to. And we got some spell shenanigan changes here. Lee Sin, cast 8 spells, cast 10 spells now for his level up. I mean, whatever. It's like, I don't think that's that big of a nerf for Lee. I don't know, like, the cultist spells, specifically Momentous Choice, really, in my opinion, doesn't really make this nerf that that consequential. Maybe on average, this slows down the Lee Sin level up by 1 turn, but it doesn't really... I'm not really, like, if I was a Lee player, I wouldn't be that upset. I'd be like, yeah, whatever, okay. Next up, we got Actions, Landmarks, Warlord's Horde, and Warlord's Palace. The countdown got increased to 9 instead of 8. I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of wish it was 10. It feels like Action's just been meta for so long, and this feels like a very light slap on the wrist because ever since, well, cheap spells like Momentous Choice and cheap equipment like Darkened Bloodletters, it feels like Action just levels up so quickly, and the landmarks just pop really, really quick. Maybe they're worried if they nerf Action a little too much, Shurima won't really have anything, because outside of Action, there isn't really that much Shurima stuff. There's like Taliyah, I think is probably the second best thing in Shurima after Action, because Sundisk is kind of a joke right now. Same with Nasus. But yeah, they're fine. They're like, both of these nerfs are okay, but nothing big. Next up, what do we have? Swain. Yeah. Like, I'm glad, like, when I saw they were nerfing Swain, I was a little scared, but I like this nerf. They basically just took away one of his attack, one of his power. Still has Overwhelm. I'm so glad they didn't revert the Overwhelm change. This is nice, though, if you're playing against Swain, because it's a little less damage you have to block from Swain. Instead of having to block 5 damage, you only have to block 4 damage, which is much easier, but most Swain players will realize that and have like a Death's Hand or something to try to squeeze in that 1 Overwhelm damage to get the Nexus Strike with Swain. So yeah, I think Swain is still solid, but this is a okay nerf, like, whatever. Next up, Ionian Tellstones. A lot to talk about here. So they changed spells from the Ionian Tellstones. 2 of them, Health Potion and Homecoming, have been removed and exchanged with Gruesome Theater and Ritual of Renewal. Gruesome Theater is the 2-mana recall a unit that has 3 or less health, basically. And Ritual of Renewal is the 4-mana slow speed, heal 1, draw 1. Overall, this is a nerf to Tellstones, I think. Homecoming can't really be used defensive, or not Homecoming. Gruesome Theater's not as good as Homecoming, both defensively and offensively, because, like, let's say you're playing Karma or Seraphine, you can't Gruesome Theater those to protect them, unlike, say, with Homecoming. Ritual of Renewal compared to Health Potion is awful. The one upside is, yeah, you get to cycle with the card draw, but you can't cast it at fast speed or burst speed like you can with a Health Potion. I guess you could argue it is more healing, but it's also a lot more mana. So yeah, I mean, Ionia Tellstones was really, really good, and arguably the best Tellstones, with the only other Tellstones competing with it was PNZ Tellstones, Piltover And yeah, Piltover Telestones. So with this nerf, I actually think PNZ Telestones is probably the best Telestones now. I still think you play Ionia Telestones in some decks, like especially Seraphine. I think you still play one Ionia Telestones at least for Seraphine because, you know, Telestones and Seraphine to help her level up is really good. But not having the health pot get doubled by Seraphine kind of sucks. So yeah, I don't know. I'll definitely have to test it out. Like, it's kind of hard to evaluate just how much worse the Telestones are now. Next up, Shimon Wind. Not much to talk about here. Goes from burst speed to focus speed. That's I've honestly asked for this nerf too, and I've played a lot of Vastayan Disciples, so it's nice. Makes it much worse defensively. This way, if you're scared of Vastayan Disciple, Shimon Wind, you can just open attack and they won't just Shimon Wind you to get a blocker. So it's a nice nerf. And I think the card is still definitely playable. Oh, the rallies. Okay. Lots to talk about here. Relentless Pursuit and Golden Aegis have both been nerfed. Relentless Pursuit just rallies now, no longer giving +1/+1 to as a buff. Golden Aegis has just gone up to 5 mana. So there is actually a reason to play Relentless Pursuit now over Golden Aegis, instead of having Relentless Pursuit just basically be like Golden Aegis copy 4, 5, and 6. And that is basically just cheaper. And to think, at one point, Relentless Pursuit was a 3-mana fast spell. I still think these cards are playable. I still think, I just don't think Demacia decks will play 3 of them in their deck anymore. Used to be, you're like, oh, I'm Demacia mid, 3 Golden Aegises. There you go. That's my finisher. So I still think you play this because it is very, like, Rally is just a very powerful effect, but I don't think you just shove in 3 of them and you're just good to go. But I don't know. As a Demacia hater, I like them. I like the nerf. Fuck Demacia. Ooh, Curse of the Tomb. Curse of the Tomb has gone from 2 mana to 3 mana. You might be saying, I've never seen this card before. Why are they nerfing it? Well, players have been able to combine Curse of the Tomb, sometimes more than one, with Overwhelm to produce huge Nexus damage. Hasn't crushed win rates yet, but they want to preemptively increase the cost for long-term game health. I have played against, so if you don't know the synergy, you are playing Overwhelm, you have an Overwhelm unit, you Curse of the Tomb, one of their units that's blocking the Overwhelm unit, and you'll deal basically twice as much Overwhelm damage, 4 times as much if it was 2 curses. So I think by making Curse of the Tomb, it makes it so that double Curse of the Tombs are much rarer and harder to do. So yeah, I like this. I like this nerf. I've been beaten by that kind of combo, that big Overwhelm Curse of the Tomb thing, and I just don't like Overwhelm. But yeah, fine buff, or fine nerf. I still think the card is playable as well. Kind of makes me a little sad though, because it never really became a control card like I was hoping it would be, but whatever. Oh, okay, fuck this guy. Not much to talk about with him. Saga Seeker's a 1/1 instead of a 1/2. With this nerf, Saga Seeker, or yeah, with the Saga Seeker nerf, that's all 3 of the original Fated units being nerfed. Pantheon was nerfed, Wounded White Flame was nerfed, and now Saga Seeker's nerfed. Like, there are other Fated units like the Star Dog or whatever it's called in the Fae in Vandal City, but those weren't there when Fated first came out. So yeah, it looks like they overestimated just how good Fated was. So yeah, I like this nerf. I'm not really much of a Pantheon player, but I feel like this nerf is nice if you're playing against Pantheon, because now the Pantheon player has to think if they just want to drop Saga Seeker on 1 against certain regions. Like, if you're against PNZ or, say, Vandal City, are you playing a Saga Seeker against a a group shot or a 1 damage Thermo Beam? You'll have to actually, like, weigh your options there. And I like that. It's not just I drop Saga Seeker and whatever, because nothing really kills Saga Seeker on turn 1. Except for, I guess, Quietus? So yeah, nice nerf here. I think Pantheon is still going to be around and still going to survive. Especially Pantheon Varus. Ionian Hookmaster, 0/1. I've asked for this nerf before. I'd say like even a month ago, I was saying like I think this card was a little too strong, and some people said like I'm dumb, but my reasoning was if you look at it, it's a 2-drop that usually has good stats for its cost because pretty much all of the equipment except for the scout one gives it good stats for its cost. Has usually has a solid keyword too, thanks to the equipment. And on top of that, you could it creates a card. In theory, creates a card when it dies because you get the equipment back anyway. So yeah, I like this. Also, if you don't keep up with stats, this card actually was the second most played card in the entire game, with a, I believe, 85% inclusion rate in any deck that could play it. So that means any Ionia deck, 85% of Ionia and Noxus decks were playing this card, and usually it was all 3 copies. And if you're wondering, if you're curious, what card was more played than Ionian Hookmaster, that card was Mystic Shot. Next up, what do we have here? Variety buffs. We got Yordles. Okay, there's a lot to talk about here with the Yordle buffs. Not really, just a lot of Yordles to talk about. First off, Paparo. This is incorrect. Paparo used to be, when you played him, he would create a random Yordle in your hand. According to this, it just says summon a Yordle now when you play him. That's wrong. If you look at the card, the image, play him, manifest a Yordle. It used to be just play, create a random Yordle in hand. So now you get to actually choose, which is a pretty big buff. The other one is grant other allied Yordles +1/+0. Now grant all Yordles. So basically he buffs himself. That's how I'm looking at this. That's cool. Like, Paparo is a borderline playable card. Yordles themselves kind of suck, especially ever since they nerfed the Yordles in ARMS, so it's whatever. Like, it is nice. They're trying to give Yordles some help, like the low to the ground, go wide Yordles, but I don't think these cards will be enough to do it. Soul Scout, 3 mana 2/2. It seems like they've completely reworked Soul Scout and Yordle Newbie. Used to be like a elusive guy. Now when he's summoned, grant me +1/+1 for each Yordle ally. Whatever, I don't think this card's good still. I've had people say like, oh, it's like crowd favorite. This guy is shitty crowd favorite now. And honestly, crowd favorite's not even that good. If you don't know crowd favorite, it's the 4 mana 2/1 with Overwhelm who gets +1/+1 for each unit you have on the field besides himself. The reason that card is playable is because, well, usually you play him in discard aggro because you can flood the board easy. And the reason why I think Swole Scout is worse is because, one, crowd favorite doesn't care about unit type. Swole Scout only cares about Yordles. Crowd favorite has a very good keyword to pay off for all those stats in the form of Overwhelm. Swole Scout has no keyword at all. Maybe give him impact and I'd be a little more ready to like give him a chance, but I'm not impressed by this. Also not impressed by Yordle Newbie, 1 mana 0/2. I think the guy used to be like a 3/2, and then if it was like when you played him and if you had like added 2 cards to your hand this turn, he gets like +1/+2 and it was like a 4/4 or something like that. I honestly can't remember. But now he's a 1 mana 0/2 and it says when you summon another Yordle, give me +2/+0 this round. Whatever. Like, it seems like they're trying to make this guy like the 1-drop aggressive opener for Yordle decks. I'm not a fan of this. Like, yes, he can block, but I'm comparing this to another premium 1-drop in the form of Legion Rearguard. You need 2 Yordle summons to get this bigger than Legion Rearguard. And I'm not into that. I think that's a little too much work. Here's the other reason I'm not liking this. This kind of deck that would play Yordle Newbie is going to be a very aggressive deck. Very aggressive decks like to open attack right when the round starts before the opponent can do anything. Yordle Newbie heavily disincentivizes open attacking because you're like, well, I want to play a Yordle so I can get a buff here to like make the attack better. But then you play like a Yordle to, buff up Yordle Newbie, and then your opponent plays like Avalanche or Arachnoid Sentry or just something that punishes you for developing the board. So yeah, not a fan. I do think Paparo might carry Yordles, but Soul Scout and Yordle Newbie, especially Yordle Newbie, I think are still kind of bad. Next up, some Freljord buffs. I mean, Shatter is 1 mana. That's it. Shatter, if you don't know what it is, deal 4 to an enemy if it has 0 power, or otherwise frostbite it. Rimefang Wolf is a 2/3 instead of a 3/2. I like that buff. That buff I like overall because, you know, not dying to Mystic Shot is whatever, and the attack, as long as, like, Rimefang Wolf has enough attack to actually strike, that's all that matters. Like, he could be a 1/4 and he'd still be good. In all honesty, he'd be even better as a 1/4. Because he doesn't technically strike if he doesn't have power. Sure, I guess you could argue, well, you control chant him now to shrink him so he can't strike. Whatever. As for Shatter, I don't like this card. I think this card is trash and unplayable in Constructed. It looks like with this 1 mana cost change, they're trying to make it like the Freljord Ravenous Flock. Here's the problem with this compared to Ravenous Flock. First off, Flock is fast speed. So that's already 1+ for Flock. Number 2, Flock is harder to counter compared to Shatter. Yes, the unit has to be damaged or stunned, but damage at least is going to just happen throughout the game because of how the game works. And the way to counter like damage is what? Healing. And how are you healing? It's like Guiding Touch and Star Shaping. Like, what are you gonna do? Play actual health potion now after Ionia Telestones with nerf? Yeah, you're not going to play health potion. I'm sorry. Meanwhile, for Shatter is so much easier to counter. Your opponent plays like, I don't know, Ice Veil Archer or whatever the card is called. I can't remember, the 2 mana 3/1 that freezes when it's summoned, or even just a freeze, or just some, like, they freeze you somehow, basically. And then you play Shatter. You have so many options to counter this. Like, in pretty much every region, you know, Hail Cascade, Sharp Sight, Noxus has so many different ways. Freljord doesn't really have that many ways themselves. I guess you can argue they have, like, Fury of the North. But yeah, I feel like Shatter is just so meh, in my opinion. It's like, and then, like, what, Bandle City even has, like, Stress Defense and Purpleberry Shake and other such things. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I think, like, Shatter is just, I think slow speed hurts it a lot, and I think it's just too easy to counter compared to Ravenous Flock, which is a top tier removal spell, but Ravenous Flock, which is fast speed and is much more difficult to counter and stop because healing's a little not as prominent as, say, just stat buffs. Next up, another Freljord buff. Troll Scavenger goes from a 1/3 to a 0/4. I like it now, so if you behold a card, it's a 3/4 for 2 mana. That's solid. That's like a Badger Bear, a turn 2 Badger Bear, which is solid for the decks that would probably be playing this card. Just gonna get an early, cheap, fat card out there to try and slow down the game while you either play ramp spells or try to find, like, big stuff. So yeah, I like this card. I think it's solid. Not much to talk about with it, though. Just a nice small buff to it. Our removal buffs. Okay, these are interesting. Well, one of these is interesting. Hex Obliterator is not the interesting buff. 5 damage to 6 damage. Cool, whatever. I like that buff. It actually feels like real removal and actually feels like it'll hit things and maybe even get around certain combat tricks like Sharp Sights. But the second one, Celestial Impact. I actually never thought of this buff. I wasn't thinking of adding anything new to Celestial Impact. I was like, well, maybe they change it to fast speed, maybe they make it 6 mana, etc., etc. Now, though, it still does the whole obliterate a unit or landmark at slow speed for 7 mana, basically main deckable Comet, Fallen Comet. Now, though, it also heals your Nexus for 3. I like it. I really like this. Will I play this card, though, is the question. I'm not sure. I'm gonna try to play this card. I don't know if it'll be good, but my brain, when I see Celestial Impact getting a buff, it immediately jumps to Lux Aphelios. This gives some extra healing for Lux Aphelios, solid big removal, and, you know, Lux likes big spells, so that's sweet. Like, healing's not that necessarily in the deck because, you know, Aphelios has his moon weapons, you could play Star Shaping, but this does help you give some extra removal. Like, I'll play, like, maybe 2 of these in Lux Aphelios, so I like the change. I like the buff. Seems nice. Without really, like, making it OP. And next up, we got our Noxus buffs. Conservatory, countdown 12 to countdown 11. Kind of wish it was countdown 10, but you know, I'll take it. I've tried to play Conservatory ever since the nerf, and it just felt way too slow and felt like a joke. So I like this change. Lord Broadmain is a 3-5 now instead of a 2-4. Cool. I played a lot of Lord Broadmain, and he always did feel a little too small for his cost. Like, he has a really powerful effect, but 6 mana for a 2-4 felt bad, so I like this change. 5 health actually lets him dodge some removal. Also, I guess you can argue, yeah, he dodges Quietus now too, so that's sweet. I would have preferred a 5 mana cost reduction, but this is fine. Other people were saying, like, maybe he'll deal 3 damage. I don't really care about the damage. The damage he does doesn't really matter that much, in my opinion. You just want him on the field for the ongoing effect, and giving him more health lets him stick around a little bit easier. Next up, Synan. Not much to talk about here. Synan was nerfed to a 3-3. They're reverting the nerf to a 3-5. Seems like they're admitting they overreacted with the nerf to Synan. So they're just reverting the nerf. So that's nice. If you're a Kennen player or like an Ahri player, you're probably happy about this. But I don't think this is going to bring back Kennen or Ahri in all honesty. But you might play this in random Ionia decks because it's just really good value. 2 cards and a 3-5 because Synan being just really big for its cost, having 5 health for 6 mana is solid. Next up, okay, this card I might be overestimating, but I think this card is strong now. Laurent Duelist. Used to be a 3 mana 4-2. When you played him, he would give an ally challenger for the round. Now he's a 2 mana 2-2, who when you play him, grants challenger to an ally in hand. I do think this is a much better version of the card. And I do think it is playable. And the reason why is you slap this guy's challenger on a quick attack unit. So, you know, like Severe, Gwen, etc., etc. Maybe a regen unit like Trundle or even Garen or something. A tough unit like a Radiant Guardian. I think this card is much more powerful now. Here's the problem. I can't remember the name of the card. There's that 1 mana 2-2 that basically says when it's summoned and you behold an elite, it gives you that 1 mana spell that's like 1 mana spell, 1 mana burst spell. Next unit you summon has challenger. And that card doesn't really see play. I think this card is better than that card purely because you don't have to behold an elite. I feel like one of the weaknesses of that 1-drop, whose name I can't remember, it's like something Vanguard or whatever. One of the weaknesses was having to behold an elite really was a big drawback. So you're basically paying 1 extra mana to not have to behold an elite. Now you can't save and hold this effect. You have to play it on a card right away. But I think overall it's better. And 2 mana 2-2 is fine. Stats for its cost. Not great, but not terrible. Next up, Iberos. This buff, honestly, this buff just feels like a quality of life buff. Goes from a 0-0 to a 1-1. Basically, they're saying like, yeah, we don't want him to just die from a hush. So, cool. But yeah, not much to talk about there. Iberos is whatever. Like, Dark and Harpoon is fine, but Iberos is honestly just whatever. Like, I feel like I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually played against Iberos. Meanwhile, I've played against Dark and Harpoon quite a few times, and I've only seen Iberos like once or twice against me. Next up, Safety Inspector. He's got a mana discount. He's now 5 mana instead of a 6 mana 6/6. Now he's a 5 mana 5/5. A little annoying, a little scary. Basically, he generates every single turn. He creates a Fleeting Inspection Past in hand, which is basically a 0 mana Noxian Fervor, kind of. But you have to destroy landmarks instead of damaging your units. Problem with this guy has always been just actually having the landmark. But maybe with some of the extra landmark synergy and landmark cards we've gotten in the past few sets, maybe a 5 mana 5/5 Safety Inspector is playable. I think you'd rather play other things in your landmark decks, though. Next up, Escaped Abomination. It's a 3/3 instead of a 4/2. Yeah, it's a buff, I'd say. Like, it's the same amount of stats, but not dying to like a 1-drop, like a 1 mana 2/1 is pretty solid. Not dying like Mystic Shot, Avalanche is also pretty good. And this card used to be a 4/4 as well. Jeez. Kind of wish they had given it Fearsome instead, but I'll take a 3/3. I'm not really a person who plays this card, but I think it's solid. And Bone Club, I don't get this buff at all. They just gave it more stats. 5 mana 5/5 instead of 4/4. Kind of wish they had just made it cheaper, or maybe made the stats a little smaller and gave it a keyword, like maybe a 5 mana 3/3/2, and it has regen on it or something. But yeah, I don't think only giving 4/4 of stats was what was holding back Bone Club. I think it's just a big tempo loss is the problem. And then Shadowblade Fanatic, nice buff to this guy, just going up to 3/3. This card, in my opinion, is a borderline playable card. Not dying to Mystic Shot, like a lot of these cards that have been buffed recently, is a very big change. I have played this before in like Kayn Zoe, and it felt solid in Kayn Zoe. Now that it doesn't die to Mystic Shot, it feels even better, so I might try Kayn Zoe again. I don't know what this is. What is this? Wrathful Rider got +1 attack. I'm not even going to stay here too long. This honestly just feels like filler. Like they're like, oh no, we need an extra card to buff, to put in the balance patch. I don't know, throw like +1 attack on some card that no one plays. I think this is like one of the least played cards in the game out of all cards. Don't actually call me out on that statement, but I honestly feel like this is probably bottom 10 least played cards. Because this card is not good. And getting +1 attack is not going to do much. This is basically the, I want Vi, we have Vi at home, and this is the Vi at home. Next up, Gorlith. He's got a 2 extra health. It's fine, like Gorlith is still whatever. Kind of wish instead of giving him 2 extra health, they would remove the tough and give him Spell Shield or something else, but it's fine. Like, you might play a 1 of Gorlith in random Demacia decks just for the healing now, but I'm not too enthusiastic to play Gorlith in my decks. Next up, Dusk Rider. They made it cheaper, lowered the stat line a little bit. Instead of being a 5 mana 3/5, it's a 4 mana 3/4. Sure, I guess. Like, if you played on curve, you've probably Nightfalled maybe twice. So you get a 4 mana 5/4 with Fearsome on curve. I guess that's fine, but as for Nightfall finishers in the late game, I'd rather play other things like Winding Light or Doom Beast with multiple Nightfall activations, or Nocturne himself. So I don't think this is going to bring Nightfall back. Now this card, this is scary. Reaver's Row going from 5 mana to 4 mana is terrifying for one specific reason, one card, and that is Taliyah. Turn 4 Reaver's Row, turn 5 Taliyah copying Reaver's Row, plus the 1 mana advanced spell. That's a lot of damage. That's really scary. And I honestly think that's a fairly, with things like Preservarium as well in that deck and Predicts, I think that's a fairly consistent combo to pull off. And I'm really scared if that actually becomes a meta deck, because I've played against that deck before with 5 mana Reaver's Row, and it's terrifying and pushes a lot of damage relatively quickly. So I'm calling it now. I think Reaver's Row Taliyah might be a top tier deck, at least a high tier 2 deck. Next up, Spirits Unleashed. Changed it. +1/+1 now is granted to allies everywhere. Sure. That's really, really good. Not much to talk about. Giving +1/+1 to all of your stuff everywhere, so in hand, on board, and in deck, is crazy good. I don't think I have to talk too much about that. I don't think you'll actually play this card in your deck, but Udyr is super happy that his champ spell has gotten a huge buff. And Rot Colossus. Now the created copy is 4 mana. Sure. I still think this card is a little too slow for the decks it would go in. I feel like Ornn is already the top end, as all the top end you need. Maybe you play it as like a 1-of if you want a little extra top end, I guess. And Darkened Ballista just doesn't damage you anymore. My problem with Dark and Ballista was never the self-damage. My problem with Dark and Ballista, in my opinion, is you're in Noxus, and if you want equipment, you can play Great Hammers. For 1 extra mana with Great Hammers, you get the same amount of stats, and you get Overwhelm on top of that. And the only upside for Dark and Ballista is it is 1 mana cheaper, and you might summon a Darken. You might summon Naganeka of Zareta, but Naganeka kind of sucks. So I'm still going to just play Hammers. Maybe like a very, very, very low to the ground aggressive deck plays this card, but even then I think they would rather play Hammers. Next up, Pathless Ancient. 4 mana, 4/3. Now the buff is, it used to only have its cost reduced once. Now the cost gets reduced for each unit recalled, so it can technically be 0 mana. Maybe there's an infinite combo somewhere that can be done with this, but I don't think so. So I don't think you would play a 0 mana 4/3. Well, I mean, you would play a 0 mana 4/3, but I don't think you would play a conditional 0 mana 4/3 in a recall deck, like an Ahri deck. Problem with Ahri decks is really just Ahri is just a little too fragile, in my opinion. Void Seeker, kind of a nice buff. Can now hit champions after you evolved. Cool. I do honestly think this card is solid, but outside of Kaisa, you can't really play this card, so kind of just tied to Kaisa. And the problem is I don't think Kaisa would want to play Void Seekers anyway. And our next card, Vandal Tellstones. In my opinion, Vandal Tellstones currently is the worst Tellstones. They're removing Keeper's Verdict for Electro Harpoon. So that's a 6 mana Poppy champ spell, basically, to put the unit back on top of the deck. For Electro Harpoon, which is the 2 mana, discard a card to deal 2 to something and deal 2 to the Nexus. I do think this improves Vandal Tellstones, and I think this makes Targon Tellstones the worst Tellstones. I still think Vandal Tellstones is trash. But Electro Harpoon, in my opinion, does make it a little bit better. And yes, I can see arguments for saying like, well, Electro Harpoon's worse. I don't agree, but I can kind of see them. Anyway, though, it doesn't really matter. I still think this card is bad. And that's it. That's all of the card changes. Like I said, lots of card changes. We'll go through the rest of the set of the patch really quick, but that's it for card changes. So thank you if that's all you care about. But Spirit Blossom skins seems nice, like Ahri skins, Evelyn skins, Kindred skins, Master Yi, Teemo, and Yasuo. I'm not a big fan of the Spirit Blossom skin lineup, so I'm probably not going to buy them. But they do look nice. I'll give you that. Next up, looks like they're updating these 2 skins, the Pike and Echo skins, with some alternate art and some level up animations. So that's pretty cool. And that is it. Some bug fixes too, but none of these bug fixes really are that major. And that's it. Like I said, long video, but a lot of stuff to talk about today. Overall, I think the patch is fine. Like, if I had to give it a rating, I'd say like 8 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10. A couple of cards I feel like should have been nerfed. Like, I wish Ezreal was nerfed because I hate that guy. Honestly, kind of surprised Back Alley Bar dodged a nerf. And of course, there are some cards I wish were buffed that never get buffed, like Fangs. I kind of wish Fangs was buffed. I wish Draven was buffed. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you all enjoyed the patch as well. I'd love to hear your opinion on the patch and just what you think of it in general. And if there's anything that was not buffed or nerfed, I'd love to hear your opinion on what you think should have been buffed or nerfed down in the comments below. And if you guys just enjoyed the video in general, I'd love it if you could leave a comment or a like as well, because it always helps me out and always helps out the channel. And if you guys want to keep up with the Legends of Runeterra content, you can always go and subscribe to the channel as well. Also, if you want to watch me play some Legends of Runeterra, you can go and check me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Senaton, where I stream pretty much every single day. Anyway, though, with that all said and done, thank you all again for watching this video, and until I see you guys in the next one, bye!